Hello, this is a Pacesetter training video on how to use the dimensioning tool feature within Xactimate. So this will take a little bit of time. This is a very powerful tool, so just relax, maybe grab a cup of coffee, cup of tea, and sit back, and hopefully I can help you increase your efficiency when estimating and taking measurements and inputting that in Xactimate. So as you know, when we send in our estimates to the carrier, we have to provide measurements of all the materials that we are replacing and paying for under the policy that are covered. If we're doing roofs, siding, interior rooms, we have to have some type of drawing or measurements that we can show how we're coming up with the numbers in our estimate. For roofing, for most carriers, and it's the same with Affix, we have to use Sketch to do that. You can use Sketch for other types of shapes, for instance, interior rooms and or siding. However, there's another tool in Xactimate called the dimensioning tool. It is built in to all Xactimate, a similar feature that we have with the Sketch, but it's a little bit different. In my opinion, it's a lot quicker, it's more efficient. You don't have to draw any shapes. It has predefined shapes, basically, that you just punch numbers in. And it calculates all of the measurements in the background and holds all the measurements just like Sketch does, so that in your line items you can use variable codes to pull in those measurements automatically in the background. So let's start with looking at a couple of things we're going to use the dimensioning tool for here. We're going to dimension a bedroom with a little offset. This is the shape here. And we're going to dimension a couple of elevations on the outside for siding, the front and the right, and then the right has a little offset to it, a little bit different shape, a little bit different height. So let's kind of look at some measurements. You may want to look at these and draw a real quick rudimentary drawing if you want to kind of follow, maybe draw some of the measurements in. The main bedroom is 12 by 12. We're going to say both of these rooms are 8 foot tall, standard ceiling height. So the main bedroom is 12 by 12, and the little offset is 6 by 6. Keep in mind that, as you'll see, we have a missing wall right here. This is actually two separate little rooms in Sketch. I can pull this room off. Of course, we're not seeing a wall here because I've deleted that previously, but there's a wall here in the main bedroom. But it's technically two rooms that are attached with a missing wall. When we use the dimensioning tool, we're going to dimension both of these rooms separately, and then we're going to add a missing wall that this shape right here on each room, so that the dimensioning tool knows that in each room there's a missing wall, in case we're painting walls or something. And then on the siding, on the front elevation, we have a 28 foot wide gable type elevation, 9 foot tall. And then we have the gable height is 5 feet. Those are the only three measurements we need for this shape. And this is something if you don't know, maybe take note of this in the field when you run into this shape and you decide to use the dimensioning tool or Sketch. Those are the only three measurements you need for this shape: length, height, and the gable height. The gable height is from this point, the top of the height of the elevation, right underneath the roof right here, to the top of the gable. You may be asking in the field, well, let's say there's vinyl siding all over this. How do I measure this? Do you get up on your ladder? Yeah, you could. It's a little extra work, but you could do it that way. Another way you could do it, if you get good with the tape and you have a strong enough tape, something like a Fat Max or something that has a long break point where it won't break on you, out till 10, 12 feet, it'll kind of, by break, it'll fall back down. It won't hold a straight line out. You can stand on the ground and run that thing up the siding all the way up here, and then kind of look at what the measurement is, kind of look across here. It's not as accurate, but you can do it that way. Another way you can do it is if you look at the siding and walk up to the siding and you measure one of the little slats, say it's 5 inches, you can start right here and count all your slats up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up. Multiply that by 5 inches. Divide it by 12, which is feet, and it will give you how many feet and inches this is. That's another way you can do it. Okay, so you'll notice also we have some missing walls on the front. Got 4 windows and a door. Right elevation, we have a different window shape over here and a smaller window on the offset. We are going to do this back in this room. I want to point out something real quick. I forgot to say that AFIX doesn't require us to put missing walls on interior rooms when we're painting walls, for instance, unless it is a large opening or you're replacing all of the drywall on that wall where there's an opening, a window or door. Then they want you to put the missing wall in. But for normal just painting, you don't have to do that. Again, unless, even on paint, unless it's a large opening. In this case, we have a 6-foot wide openings by 8 foot tall. That's a 48-foot opening on each side on these 2 rooms. So we want to take that out. So again, in these situations, just use some common sense. If it's standard doors and windows, even a decent sized window, a 5x5 or maybe even a 6x6, you could probably leave that in. If it start getting over 40 feet or so, I would say start thinking about adding those missing walls, just those missing walls, not the other doors and windows. The other situation is siding. The guideline for that is on siding. If we're painting elevations, if we are replacing siding on elevations, they do want all missing walls included in the measurements, regardless of the size of the opening. So interior is a little bit different than exterior. So that's why we have these missing walls here we're going to add on the exterior. Okay, so let's go and do the dimensioning tool. The dimensioning tool is done within the estimating grouping tree, and basically we're going to put measurements and embed those with the tool in a folder. So let's do that. Let's go to the bedroom on the dwelling. To open the dimensioning tool, one of 2 ways. You can either double click on it, or you can right click on the room and then select dimension. Obviously, it's a little bit more clicking, but either way works. I always double click on the room, so let's open that. It's already set for the dimensioning tab. It's ready to go, so we're going to start adding the first shape, which is the main room. You do that by clicking this little green plus. It defaults to the box shape. Let's drop this down. These are all these different shapes I was telling you about. One thing to keep in mind here, if you familiarize yourself with the dimensioning tool, which I highly recommend you do, when you get a chance, sit down and open up a blank estimate, throw a room in there, double click on it, and go in the dimensioning tool and look at some of these shapes because they'll help you a lot in the field. For instance, let's say you're out on a risk and you have a room that you have some flooring or walls or ceiling you're going to be painting or doing some flooring, and it's a peaked ceiling, a cathedral ceiling. Well, they call it a peaked ceiling here in the dimensioning tool. Let's click on that and look at that shape. So it gives us a little drawing of a peaked or cathedral type ceiling. In this case, the different ceiling shapes or lengths are a little bit different. That peak could be right in the middle of the room, which is very common, but it could be offset. But what you should familiarize yourself with these different shapes here in the dimensioning tool is when you click a shape, click down in these fields and it will give you a little red line showing you what measurement it wants you to input. This would be the peaked wall length, the non-peaked wall length, the tall wall height, the short wall height. Of course, these could both be the same if the peak is in the middle. And then the peak of the height of the peak from the floor right to the top of the peak, and the short wall to the peak distance. This could be the same. It may be different. If it's right in the middle, it'll be the same. What I'm pointing out this to you is once you learn some of these shapes and the measurements you need, you'll know what measurements to take in the field when you're in this room in the insured's house. You can just draw a quick shape or just write the measurements down real quick and know what they are and then come and punch them in here. It's very, very quick and fast. In this case, we're going to use a box. You'll also notice that the room we started to dimension bedroom, it gives the name here, but it's grayed out. We cannot change that. We're going to add that little offset room, and any rooms or shapes that we add in here, we can give it a name. You'll see that shortly. Okay, so we got our box. Let's put our measurements in. We know that the room was 12 by 12. This is the main room. 8-foot ceiling. We'll leave that alone. And we need to put that missing wall in. So to add missing walls in the dimensioning tool, select the missing walls button, add, and then put your missing walls in to start. So we know this one missing wall we're going to use is 6 foot wide. It's already set to 8 feet tall. This is going to be set to open to the exterior. I know that sounds a little strange. It's the way the dimensioning tool works. You could just leave that set. It'll work fine. We're still going to leave these numbers in, and it will subtract the square footage out of the wall. We have a quantity of 1. You also have to select the type. In this case, it only gives us the option to select this one type. It's already checked. This is a shape that says opens to both ceiling and floor, which is what that shape was. It was a complete missing wall from the ceiling to the floor. This would be a doorway. This would be a drop down if you step down into a sunken part of a room and you're putting some kind of missing wall in. And this would be any windows. Okay, so we've got this set. Let's say okay, close. Now we can see our missing wall. We have 1. This tells you how many you have. All this is done. That main bedroom shape is completed. So we just say okay, and we're back to the main dimensioning tool. Now we're going to add the offset. Select the green plus. Now we can give it a name. The box is the correct shape again. Let's put the shape measurements in. 6 foot, 6 foot. It's an 8 foot ceiling. We're going to add the missing wall. Remember, on the other side of that wall, which is the small offset, we got to take that missing wall out of that little room too, or Xactimate doesn't know that there's not a missing wall there. It'll try to paint over that if you're painting the walls. So again, same way, add. It's already set in this case, 6 foot wide, 8 foot high. Opens to bedroom, that's fine. You can leave that there. Quantity of 1, same shape, opens to ceiling and the floor. We're good. Okay, close. Again, it shows 1 missing wall. Our measurements are in, correct shape, box. Okay. Now before we look and drop a line item or two to show you, when you drop a line item in, let's say we'll do this shortly. Let's say we're going to paint all the walls, and we put for our calculation code right here, we're going to use a variable code W for walls. It's going to put a number in there for all of the walls for both of these rooms. These are tied together in the dimensioning tool. However, let's say that you only wanted to paint the walls in the bedroom. For instance, let's say for some weird reason in the offset the walls were paneling. And we only want to paint the walls in the bedroom. How do you do that? How do you separate that out? Well, you use the variable code again, W. But W, remember, will paint all the walls in both rooms. We just want the bedroom. This number right here is what you would add. You would say W0. And to get those informations, you can look at the variables tab. So if we go look at these little letters, these are the codes that you can put in line items. This is the description of the code, and this is the measurement that it's going to pull and automatically put for you in the line item for both rooms. If we scroll down, we'll see that the bedroom has the same codes, but they all have a 0 by them. So if you'll notice, the floor area for the bedroom is F0, 144 feet. Let's go back up and look at the floor on both rooms, 180. So you can see that Xactimate and the dimensioning tool is pre-calculating all of these measurements for you in each room separately and both rooms together. You just have to use the right code in the line item for what you want to pay for. Very, very, very cool. Okay, so let's close this and let's play with a line item or two. So again, let's say we want to paint all the walls. PNTP, just for the purposes of training here, the default drops it in WC. That's the default. Xactimate says, oh, I'm going to paint the walls and the ceiling. No, we just want to paint the walls, Xactimate. So let's change that to W. Click away, and we see that we have 432 square feet of walls. because we have W. Again, if we wanted to check that, we could double click on the room again, open up the dimensioning tool, go to the variables and look at W. And there's our number, 432 feet that it pulls in and puts right here. That's what we're paying for. We don't have to calculate anything. We let the measurements in the dimensioning tool do all of our calculations for us in the background, and all we're doing is putting a variable code in the calculation field, and it will pull in the correct numbers, whether it's the square footage of the walls, the floor, the ceilings, one ceiling, the perimeter floor, which we'll do shortly. So let's say, for instance, it's a good example. Let's say we want to replace the baseboards in just the little offset. That's probably unusual, but let's just say that's where the damage is. We're going to just do that and paint those. So let's go and put a line item in here. FNCB would be a baseboard. If you notice, it defaults with the code in it already. PF, that's what we want, perimeter floor. But we don't want just PF, because remember, the PF is going to be the perimeter floor of both rooms, the bedroom, the main room, and the little offset. If you're just wanting to pay for the baseboards just in the little offset, we have to add that little number to the side of PF for the offset, and that was the number 1. Right now, it's 54 feet around the perimeter of the floor for both rooms, but watch what happens when we put the 1 here. It changes to 18 feet. And the 18 feet that we would be paying for would be just the 3 walls on the offset right here where the baseboards would be. It's not paying for baseboards right here because remember, we put that missing wall in that little offset shape in the dimensioning tool. So Xactimate knows that there's no wall here, which means there's no baseboard here. So it knows that, and it's not going to try to pay this additional 6 foot. It's only paying 3 6-foot walls where a baseboard is installed. That's 18 feet. Let's go back to the estimate in the room, and we'll see that baseboards PF1, perimeter floor 1, that's only the little offset, 18 feet. Very, very cool, very powerful. Once you learn how to use this tool and variable codes, your estimate writing will speed up dramatically, and you'll be also very accurate in your estimating. Okay, so that's the basic idea of what's going on using the dimensioning tool in a bedroom, in an interior room. So let's do this on the siding. Siding is a little bit different. So again, we're going to dimension the room, open it up, double click on it. Click on the little green square or the green cross, same thing. Now in this case, we're going to pick a different shape. We're not doing a box on interior room. Let's drop this down and we're going to select elevation. Now you'll notice again that we've dimensioned starting the siding room, and it is named siding, but we cannot change the name. We are going to dimension 3 different shapes, remember? We're going to dimension the main front elevation, which has that gable, the right elevation, the main part of the right, which is that long rectangle, and that little small squarish shape, which is the little right offset. It's 3 little shapes we're going to dimension, and we're going to put the appropriate missing walls in each of those, okay? So one thing to keep in mind is we want to name those front elevation, then right elevation, and then right offset. But we can't do that here. And this is called siding. We don't want to just dimension siding. We want to dimension specific elevations. So what you do on siding in this case is you just open up the elevation shape and leave all of this alone, except you're going to put 1,000 square feet or 1,000 lineal feet measurements in here. I know this sounds weird. I'm going to explain this shortly of why you're doing this. You do this in the main siding room. This is only on siding, and it's only if you're really doing multiple rooms, or rather not multiple rooms, but shapes on elevations that have openings, missing walls, because it's a glitch in Xactimate that if you put missing walls in, it won't allow you to complete the dimensioning of that. It'll give you an error. So the way you get around it is you just put a large number in here. I always just put 1,000 in the main siding room, right when you open it. And then you say, okay, We're not going to dimension any of this shape right here on the siding. This is sort of like just a placeholder. So let's say, okay. Now remember, when we add new rooms, now we can start giving names. So here we go. Let's start with the green cross again. Now we're going to call this front. You can call it front side, front elevation. We'll call it front elevation. Now let's just leave it at the word front. That's fine. They'll know what it is. It's in the siding room, right? Change this to elevation shape. Now we're going to put our shape in. Remember, we took those measurements. We had the length, 28, the height, 9, and remember the gable height. Remember how it Xactimate in the dimensioning tool gives you the little red line that tells you the measurement that it wants right here. There's that little measurement that we take in the field. That was 5 feet. And then we add our missing walls. So let's put the door in first. So the length is, we're just going to say it's 3 by 7. That's the front door. Here you want to always select opens to exterior. Okay? Just on all these openings, I always recommend doing that. Quantity of 1. You'll notice we have 3 shapes we can pick from now. We want to pick the door shape. We say, okay, we're done with that shape. Now we're going to add another missing wall. Add. These are the 4 windows. They're all the same size. So we're going to put the length is 3 foot wide. They're 4 foot tall. Opens to exterior. There's a quantity of 4 of these windows on the front elevation. We're going to select this shape. The little window shape opens to neither the floor or the ceiling. It's just a little floating shape. Say okay. We're done. We put our elevation in. We put our measurements. We've added our 5 missing walls. 1 that's 3 by 7 and 4 of them that are 3 by 4. Close. Now we're good to go on that shape. Now we're going to add the right elevation. Again, green cross, right, give it a name, select elevation shape. Then we had, I don't remember the numbers on that, but let's just say 28 again for sake of easiness. 9 foot high. In this case, we don't put a gable. Why? Because we don't have a gable on the right. It's just a rectangle. So we leave that at 0. We just want length and height. We're going to put a missing wall in here. I believe, as I recall, we can go back and look, but I think that had a larger window on it. We'll say it was a little 5 by 5 picture window. So we're going to add 5 by 5, opens to exterior, quantity of 1. It's a window. We're going to pick this shape. Okay. Now we got our missing wall in, close. We're good. Close this. Now we're going to do the last shape, which is the little right offset, and we give it that name. Again, select elevation. Put the measurements in. In this case, we're going to say it was 8 foot by 8 foot high, not 9. A little bit shorter. We don't need any gable height. Again, it was just a little, kind of like a little rectangle, in this case a square. It had a little missing wall, one little small window in it. We're going to say, I believe it was a 2 by 2. Opens to exterior, quantity of 1. It's a window shape. All right, we're done. Okay, close, okay. So now we've got all of our siding in here. All of our elevations are measured. All of our missing walls are in. Keep in mind that these shapes and these measurements, the little drawings and the shapes and the measurements are going to show up on the estimate. They'll actually be printed on the estimate on top of these rooms. Right before these rooms start, Xactimate's going to draw little shapes and it's going to give all these measurements so the insured and their contractor can see this. We'll look at that shortly before we conclude the training video. Okay, so let's look at all this. We're good to go. Well, notice that we have this 1,000 in here. And if you forget this, let's say we close this and we go and put siding in. So let's do SDG vinyl. And if we notice, it puts in vinyl siding and it defaults to wall, which is what we want for all of them. But look at the square footage, and it's paying $12,874,633.20. If you're paying attention, you would know right there, oops, I forgot to take my thousands measurements out of the siding. Let's go do that. Open up the dimensioning tool, open up that siding, put zeros in here. And it's going to say, you have 0 measurements in here. Do you want to continue? Yes, we do. We know what's going on. We've already got all of our other measurements in the other shapes. We're good. Say yes, say okay. Now click OK, and our measurement goes down to a reasonable amount. And it's paying for 540 feet. Again, just like the interior room, if we went back and looked, open up the dimensioning tool for siding, click the variables tab, we'll see that wall, which we're paying for all the siding on all those 3 little shapes, the front and the right, is 540 feet. And that's exactly what it's paying for, because we have the variable code of W. Again, if you just wanted to pay for a portion, of course you wouldn't need to necessarily dimension that, but if you were doing something different, you could use 0 behind the variable code, and that would be just for, I'm sorry, not 0. That's the first siding room. It's a little bit different here. The front would be 1 by your variable code. The right would be adding a 2 by the variable code, and obviously the right offset you would add a 3 by that variable code, and that code would just give you the measurement for that shape only. Let's go back real quick and look. I want to make sure you understand why we need to do that 1,000 on siding. So let's pretend the soffit room again is a siding room. We're going to start over. We'll just do one quick elevation. We go into elevation, and we leave this at zeros. Say okay. Yes, we want to have zeros. Then we add this elevation. Let's say front. We'll just do 1. And we have a measurement of 30 by 9. We'll say by 6. We have a little gable, let's say. And then we want to add some missing walls. So we click on missing walls, add, and we put the doorway in. Let's say 3 by 7. We pick our shape, quantity of 1. Now you see we get an error. Length must be greater than 0. You say, okay. Okay. And you look, and it goes back and resets the numbers. Let's do it again. The length, it said, must be greater than 0. Well, we're going to put 3 in. That's the width of the front door we're trying to take out. That's greater than 0. It's 7 foot high. Opens to, let's try opens to soffit. Let's see if that works. Quantity of 1. We pick the door shape. We get the error again. This is what I was saying earlier. It's a glitch in Xactimate that won't allow you to put in missing walls on siding. And the way around that is to open up the first siding room. We'll go back to this other one that we did, siding, and put the 1,000 in it. You can put a large number in. You could put 500 or whatever. It's just easy to type 1,000. That's the way you have to work around this glitch. If you have an elevation that you have missing walls, it only is the missing walls glitch. If you have the front elevation, or let's say the side, the right elevation, and there's no openings on that you have to take out. You're replacing the siding. There's no door over there. There's no windows or anything, and it's just one elevation full of siding. You don't need to put the thousands in here. You can just go ahead and do it this way. Put siding, zeros, front, put your right, put your measurements in, no missing walls, and it should work properly. This glitch, again, only occurs if you're putting siding, different siding shapes in, and you're trying to add missing walls. It won't work properly. So again, put the thousands in here, then just move away from the siding, start doing your other elevations, and then just go back and open the siding one again before you finish this and take the zeros. Take the thousands out, put it all back to 0. And again, now it's going to say, hey, you want to set this to 0? And you go, yes, I do. It'll let you continue now. You're good to go. Well, I hope that helps you a little bit in understanding how the dimensioning tool works. Again, it's a powerful tool. I highly recommend that you use it and look into it a little bit more. If you have any questions on this or anything else, please contact your manager or claim supervisor with AFIX, and we'll be happy to help you. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next video.